How Japanese minimalists invest their free time to feel happier. Have you ever wondered why Japanese people seem so at peace with their free time? Why they don't try to fill every minute with busyness, yet still manage to find joy, connection, and depth in the simplest moments of doing nothing? In a culture where silence can speak louder than words, where empty space is not a lack but an invitation to listen inward, Japanese minimalism isn't just a lifestyle, it's a way of being present. It's not about giving up everything. It's about letting go of what no longer serves you, so that your space and your time can be filled with only what truly matters. We're living in an age where everything moves too fast. Free time has become something we try to make the most of, rather than something we're allowed to simply enjoy. We carry our phones everywhere, check emails while eating, play podcasts while cleaning, and by the end of the day we're exhausted but somehow unsure whether we've actually lived. So maybe it's time to ask, is there another way to live? A rhythm that's slower, quieter, but more meaningful? Japanese minimalists have chosen that path. They don't let free time slip into unconscious habits. Instead, they invest in nameless, gentle moments, brewing tea, writing haiku, walking in silence, or simply sitting by a window watching clouds drift by. It might sound simple, but it's in those moments that healing happens, connection deepens, and the inner self is quietly nourished. In this video, we'll explore how Japanese minimalists invest their free time to feel genuinely happier, not by doing more, but by being more present. And maybe, through these simple habits, you'll hear a quiet reminder for your own life. You don't have to be constantly busy to live a life that feels full. Let's begin. 1. Travel and exploration. There's a subtle yet profound difference in the way Japanese minimalists approach travel. They don't leave home to chase bucket list landmarks or fill their social feeds with snapshots. Instead, they set out on quiet journeys not to escape their lives, but to return to something deeper within. Travel, to them, is a kind of pilgrimage for the soul, a gentle act of listening inward, of rediscovering silence that everyday life has buried beneath the noise. These trips often begin not with a rigid itinerary, but with a feeling, I need space. And that space is rarely found in crowded destinations, but in places where the modern world still whispers instead of shouts, like the ancient forest trails of Kumano-Kodo on Japan's Kii Peninsula. Here, along stone steps softened by time and moss, people walk not to conquer a trail, but to feel each step. There's no rush, no need to document every turn. Often, travelers pause just once, maybe to write a simple haiku in a notebook. Mist veils the waterfall. Footsteps echo on old stone. Quiet peace returns. Each sound, each scent, each glimpse of light becomes a doorway into a clearer state of being. The Japanese have a saying, "Ichi go ichi," one moment, one encounter. It's a quiet reminder to truly be where you are. If you're walking in a forest, let the forest walk into you. And maybe that's why, when people leave Kumano-Kodo, they don't carry home bags of souvenirs. What they bring back is something lighter, a mind unburdened, and eyes that see beauty differently, not in perfection, but in fleeting, weathered things. Far to the south, on the remote island of Yakushima, where 7,000-year-old cedar trees stand tall beneath the mist, minimalist travelers come not for guided tours or curated experiences. They come to touch time with their bare hands. There are no microphones, no tour buses, no staged moments, just you, the moss-covered path, and the faint whisper of old roots. People say that if you sit long enough here, you can hear the trees breathe. And you realize, moments like this cannot be rushed. They ask you to let go of the need to be productive, and instead, be present. A single cup of tea in a quiet ryokan in the forests of Hokkaido might teach you more than a whirlwind trip around the globe. Because in that simplicity, you begin to understand. The outer space is always a reflection of your inner stillness. Zaburin, a hidden ryokan tucked into Hokkaido's snowy woods, is one such place, a minimalist retreat not meant to impress, but to soothe. Each kaiseki meal is prepared with seasonal care. Each room is stripped of excess, offering only what is essential. It's not sparse, it's refined. Everything unnecessary has been lovingly removed, leaving only what speaks to the heart. At dawn, soaking in a steaming onsen while the forest hums faintly in the background, you begin to feel it. You don't have to do anything to be worthy. Just being here, in quiet gratitude, is enough. A Zen proverb gently returns to mind. If you have a cup of tea, drink it. Don't think about the second one. And maybe the most meaningful souvenir from these journeys is not a place or a photo, but a subtle shift in how you return home. You no longer feel restless in the quiet. You begin to move more slowly, and, perhaps most importantly, you start to notice the beauty in things you once overlooked: a fallen leaf, a soft ray of morning sun, the rhythm of your own breath. That is wabi-sabi, the quiet beauty of the imperfect, the impermanent, and the deeply enough. 2. Cultivating relationships. Japanese minimalists don't chase popularity or cling to relationships that drain them. Instead, they choose to invest their precious free time into a few deep connections where presence matters more than performance, and silence often speaks louder than words. Every meeting is no longer just about hanging out, but becomes an intentional ritual like a quiet tea ceremony or a slow, unhurried walk under the trees. In a world where people talk more but listen less, the Japanese minimalist way returns to sampo those slow, shared walks where nothing needs to be said. Just walking beside someone, listening to the wind in the trees, or watching the soft ripples on a pond is enough to feel deeply understood. Relationships grow not through constant conversation, but through emotional attunement. They call this the sacred pause between two people, a space where connection is nourished not by noise, but by stillness. It's the same with the tea ceremony, where every movement is mindful and unhurried. They don't make tea just to drink it. They do it to share a piece of unfragmented time. There are no phones, no interruptions. Just the quiet sound of water simmering, the warmth of the cup in your hands, and a respectful bow to close the moment. This is not about performance. It's about presence. And somehow, that silence softens the heart like it's quietly saying, "I'm fully here with you." They believe when space is left undisturbed, the heart finally has room to breathe. Not every relationship is meant to last. Japanese minimalists are also skilled in the art of gentle withdrawal. They know that when a connection no longer nourishes the soul, letting go is an act of kindness to both themselves and the other. This is a calm and graceful cutting away. No drama, no bitterness, just a quiet, honest goodbye. Sometimes it's a simple sentence: "I'm focusing inward right now." Other times, a handwritten note expressing gratitude. No one needs to hurt. All it takes is enough honesty and enough love to know when one door closes, space returns to light. Some might see this approach as cold, but the Japanese believe the outer space is always a reflection of the stillness within. And when you dare to release relationships that no longer align, you're also tidying the emotional rooms of your own life. The wonder is, what remains though fewer becomes warmer, deeper, and more real, because you chose them, not out of fear of loneliness, but from a genuine desire to walk beside them. Maybe you've never thought that a quiet walk or a silent cup of tea could fill your heart, but it's often in those moments where nothing seems to be happening that you finally feel someone's presence most deeply. And that presence, that undistracted, unhurried being with, might just be the most meaningful gift we can ever offer one another. 3. Immersion in nature and physical activity. In the minimalist lifestyle of the Japanese, nature doesn't have to be something grand or distant. It often shows up in the smallest ways: a sliver of morning light falling across a tatami mat, the sound of soft rain tapping against the roof, a single leaf drifting gently to the ground. They call this micro-nature, tiny, fleeting pieces of the natural world that weave themselves into daily life. And it's in these quiet, unassuming moments that they find the most profound sense of renewal. Each morning, before the city fully wakes, Japanese minimalists step outside for a slow, quiet walk. It doesn't need to be far, just a few blocks, maybe a loop around a neighborhood park, but it's a non-negotiable ritual. These morning walks, or asasampo, aren't meant to burn calories. They're for feeling the subtle shift of the seasons, a cool breeze that whispers autumn is near, the faint sweetness of summer flowers blooming, dew on the grass that makes your footsteps instinctively gentler, as if not to disturb the stillness. In that silence, something unexpected happens. You start to hear yourself again. Not in words, but in that feather-light awareness that touches you the way mist touches skin, cool, delicate, then gone. For those who can't spend much time outside, nature is welcomed in other ways, through tending a small bonsai or a few potted herbs on the balcony. Each morning, there's watering, trimming, observing the slight imperfections in the way a branch bends. And they smile, because they know beauty doesn't lie in symmetry or flawlessness, it lives in what's quietly off balance. A tree leaning slightly to one side isn't a mistake. It's a soft echo of how nature moves. And when they bow to care for the plant, it's not just physical, it's a kind of mindful ritual that gently reminds them, time is always whispering change, and we can grow quietly with it. Even movement is treated with this same reverence. Radio Taiso, Japan's decades-old tradition of morning calisthenics, isn't about intensity or athletic goals. It's simple, rhythmic stretching, often done barefoot on tatami or under soft sunlight on a balcony. What makes it powerful isn't the motion itself, but the presence within it. No mirrors, no performance, just breathing, stretching, and honoring the body for simply being alive. They're not exercising to improve themselves, they're moving to remember, this body is still here, still breathing, and every breath is a gift. The more time one spends with nature in this way, the lighter the heart feels. It's not that they've found more hours in the day, it's that they've learned how to slow time down, to let the moment expand, and not let the mind drift too far from the present. They begin to see beauty in what fades in the leaf changing color, the drop of rain that falls and vanishes, the stretch of the body as it greets the morning light. And one day when you find yourself smiling just because you noticed a dewdrop on a leaf during your morning walk, you'll understand why the Japanese believe even the smallest things, if you truly live with them, can change your heart. 4. Mindfulness, meditation, and yoga. If there's one thing Japanese minimalists understand deeply, it's this. Stillness doesn't need to be found in some distant place. It's always there, quietly waiting, we just forget to notice. They don't only meditate on cushions in silent rooms. Every everyday act, from brewing a cup of tea to removing shoes at the doorway, can become a doorway back to calm if you're truly present. The tea ceremony isn't just a formal ritual, it becomes a small moment in the kitchen at dawn. You boil water, prepare matcha, and listen to the kettle like it's the first sound of the day. No phone, no music, no multitasking. Just the hum of water, the warmth rising in your hands, the steady rhythm of your breath as you bring the cup to your lips. In that moment, you're not thinking about what you need to do or what already happened. Your mind comes home to where your body is. And that's when clarity quietly begins to unfold, like mist clearing from a mirror. One mindful cup of tea can become a daily ritual that resets your mind, gently and fully, without needing any apps or noise. When stepping into the home, Japanese minimalists pause at the genkan, the entryway, before going further inside. They don't rush. Instead, they stop for a minute of deep breathing, letting the threshold become a cue to leave the outside world behind. One breath to feel the tension in your shoulders. One breath to notice if your thoughts are drifting or your chest is heavy. Sometimes, a gentle bow or a forward fold is added, a simple yoga gesture to tell the body, you're safe now. That moment becomes a soft reset, a quiet declaration. This is home, and home is where you breathe deeper. Even cleaning the house becomes a form of meditation. They sweep not to get it done, but to feel each stroke. They wash dishes, while noticing the temperature of the water, the sound of the sponge, the movement of their hands. They aren't trying to make the task lighter, they're making their mind clearer while doing it. Because they believe, if you can clear away dust with presence, you're also polishing your inner clarity. Soji, or mindful cleaning, is not about tidying the space, it's about clearing the heart. There's a quiet, wabi-sabi beauty in all of this, in the simplicity of the act, the rhythm of repetition, the impermanence of dust, and the silence tucked between familiar sounds. When you live slowly enough to notice these details, your mind naturally quiets, not because life has become less busy, but because you've stopped losing yourself in the busyness. And one day, when you're sipping tea in silence and realize your breath has deepened, your chest feels lighter, and your heart is quieter, you'll understand why Japanese minimalists don't go searching for peace. They simply learn how to return to it, hidden in the ordinary moments of everyday life. 5. Creative hobbies and learning. For Japanese minimalists, Learning something new isn't about achievement, competition, or collecting skills. It's about presence. They seek out creative hobbies not for perfection or recognition, but because every step along the way allows them to meet a gentler version of themselves. Shodo, the art of Japanese calligraphy, doesn't demand that every character be flawless. There's no rush, no pressure to impress, just a brush, a sheet of paper, and a heart willing to slow down and listen. Sometimes, they'll spend an entire afternoon writing a single character. Other times, they'll stop halfway, realizing their hands are moving too fast, their mind not yet quiet. And in those pauses, they begin to understand something quietly profound. Only when the mind stops chasing the outcome, the brush can move freely. Every smudge, every uneven stroke holds its own beauty. These marks don't reflect mistakes, but states of being. To the Japanese, that's far more honest than chasing some perfect illusion. They call this lingering presence zanshin, the mindfulness that lingers even after the action has ended. When the last stroke is laid down, the hand often hovers for a breath or two, letting the moment settle. It's not about what the character looks like, it's about what it mirrors inside. And so they end the practice with a quiet smile, as if they've just touched an old piece of peace they hadn't felt in a while. Sometimes, creative expression doesn't begin with a blank page, but with something broken. A cracked ceramic bowl, a chipped plate, things others might throw away. But Japanese minimalists pick them up, and with care, they repair them using gold, dust, and lacquer. This is kintsugi. They don't hide the cracks, they highlight them. The gold seams don't try to be perfect. They follow the exact path of the break, and that's what makes each piece one of a kind. Those who practice kintsugi aren't just repairing objects, they're learning to accept the past. The pain, the flaws, the breakage. They believe a crack doesn't lessen the value of a thing, it's where the light enters. And then there are days when creativity is simply sitting down and writing a haiku. Just 17 syllables to hold a fleeting moment. No embellishments, no dramatics. A single leaf falling, the breeze brushing against skin, morning light spilling onto the floor. These tiny moments are more than enough. Writing haiku isn't about being poetic for others. It's about quietly honoring the movement of life before it disappears. And when the poem is done, the notebook is closed, and the moment has been captured, even just for yourself, the mind feels lighter. As if you held time for a second and then let it go. This is the essence of mono no aware, the gentle ache of knowing everything is slipping away. But instead of clinging, the Japanese choose to express it through creation, small, simple acts full of life. And when you slow down enough to paint, to write, or to mend something that once seemed beyond repair, you're also slowly mending something inside you, a part that once felt fractured, now glimmering in its own imperfect light. 6. Digital detox and intentional technology use. In a world where the phone is always within reach, Japanese minimalists choose to step back, not because they fear technology, but because they understand something essential. When something is too close to your hand, it may pull your mind too far from yourself. They don't reject technology, they simply tame it, setting quiet but firm boundaries. They call it sumaho o osameru, a way of keeping the phone in its rightful place, like sheathing a sharp knife, not out of fear, but out of respect. One quiet habit is to stop using the phone when the battery drops below 50%. From that point on, the phone no longer commands their attention. It's put to rest, its job done for the day. That space is then filled with real, tactile moments, walking through a park, caring for a bonsai, brewing a mindful cup of tea. As the phone dims, the world brightens. They begin to hear the rain more clearly, smell the damp earth after a shower, and feel their own heartbeat slow. There's a lightness in the chest that returns not through effort, but through simple presence. Japanese minimalists also take technology boundaries seriously, especially when it comes to sacred spaces like the bedroom, the dining table, or the first and last 30 minutes of the day. No phones by the pillow to pull them from sleep. No screens during meals to interrupt the silence. Before eating, they say itadakimasu, a gentle thank you to the food and the moment shared. Without the glow of a screen, the warmth of the meal comes into full view. The absence of devices doesn't make the meal less rich. Instead, it deepens the taste, strengthens the eye contact, and allows the space between people to fill with something real. And sometimes they take it further. On Sundays, or a chosen evening, they practice denwa mushimasu, a full day with no phone, no notifications, no scrolling. Just a quiet note to family, and then the phone is turned off, tucked away. They return to the real world with a kind of gentle curiosity. They go for a walk without recording it. They sit in tea ceremony without snapping a photo. And when the sunset casts gold across their skin, they don't rush to capture it, they just breathe, feeling how vividly it touches them. In those moments, they quietly realize, when the phone turns off, the heart turns on. We don't all have to live unplugged. But Japanese minimalists show us that sometimes, even just 1 hour without a phone is enough to rest the mind. And if we ever begin to fear silence, maybe that's the moment we need it the most to clear out the mental gomi, the quiet clutter that builds up inside when we've been too connected to everything else and too disconnected from ourselves. 7. Embracing do-nothing moments. In modern life, the hardest thing isn't doing more, it's doing nothing. Not checking messages, not squeezing in another lesson, not trying to optimize every minute for more efficiency. For Japanese minimalists, allowing yourself to slip into a moment of buzo, that quiet, vacant gazing with no intention, isn't a waste of time. It's a daily practice. They sit by a window, eyes drifting toward the sky, listening to the rain, letting thoughts pass like a gentle river, not clinging, not resisting. These seemingly useless moments are actually where Ma lives, the empty space that lets the heart finally be heard. When you stop trying to control your mind, clarity starts to surface. Insight, softness, and even long-buried emotions begin to rise. They call this kokoro no heiwa, peace of the heart. And to touch that peace, sometimes all you need is 10 quiet minutes a day. Not reading, not writing, not talking, just being with no agenda. In the evenings, many choose to sit in front of a candle flame, not for prayer or any elaborate meditation, but simply to watch. The flame flickers, dims, flares, and eventually fades. It's a living reminder of impermanence. And in that flicker, they begin to see how their own mind dances restless at first, then slowly settling. The beauty of the flame isn't in how brightly it burns, but in how gently it disappears. Just like the beauty of life isn't found in the grand, but in the quiet willingness to see things as they are, with no need to fix or frame them. Afterward, they may open a notebook and write a simple haiku, not to impress, but to honor the truth that touched them in the stillness. These short lines are like catching a small shard of time and tucking it into your pocket. No one else may see it, but you know it's real and that it matters. The Japanese call this sonomama, accepting things exactly as they are, not needing to change them, not needing to explain them, just living with them, like rain simply falls, clouds simply move, and flames simply fade. In that moment, you don't need to be anyone else. You don't need to achieve anything extraordinary. You just need to be here. And that, all on its own, is more than enough. Now that we've walked through this journey together, I want to invite you to pause and reflect. Among the 7 ways Japanese minimalists invest their free time, which one resonated with you the most? Was it the silent morning tea? The quiet act of gazing at the sky with no agenda? Or maybe it was simply learning to step away from your phone so you can see life a little more clearly? I know that changing habits is never easy, and I don't believe you have to adopt everything all at once. Japanese minimalism was never meant to push, it gently invites. It calls you back to the essentials, to what truly matters, and to a life that feels lighter, more intentional, and more deeply your own. And the best part? You can start anywhere. A morning cup of tea without your phone, a single deep breath at the doorway before stepping inside, an afternoon spent doing nothing but watching sunlight filter through a window. These tiny actions, repeated with care, have the power to shift the space inside you, making it lighter, clearer, and more still. So here's my invitation. Share in the comments below, which habit will you begin with? What's your first small step toward bringing simplicity, awareness, and joy back into your free time? For me, minimalism has never been about having less. It's always been about having more presence, more real feeling, more quiet joy. And I'm here to support you on that journey. If you found this video meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. That way, you won't miss any upcoming content, and you'll help me keep creating more reflections and mindful tips just for you. I truly hope these lessons spark real change in your life, just as they once quietly transformed mine. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll keep exploring how to live slower, deeper, and more true.